Um, I'm a big advocate, by the way, of staying in your own lane, meaning you're a realtor, you're not the lender, but do you have an obligation to know a little bit about what's going on there? Absolutely, right? You need to understand every part of it, and that the lender is going to be plugged into whether or not your client put the initial deposit down, as it says in the contract. The lender has an underwriting department, and then around here, there's title and escrow. For Marina in New York, it's an attorney state. And I don't know, is it an attorney state in Tennessee, Sherry? You guys use attorneys, not escrow companies, title companies.
Oh, we use both actually, either or. It's
Oh,
a choice. So
Rick and I'm in Massachusetts, and we're an attorney
Oh.
too.
Oh, that's right. You're Massachusetts. I keep saying New York.
Yeah.
but are you-
No. I'm in Massachusetts, Boston area.
Okay. Are you an attorney state?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
right.
everything is there. Like all the closing is done by attorneys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it basically true anything on the east side of Mississippi is attorney state? That's what I keep going back to.
Well, no, I think parts of Florida there are parts of Florida that are still title and escrow, but I'm not
Okay.
sure where the breakdown is, or and then I was trying to look for the I will multiply my value 100-fold.
for us, we can do either attorney or escrow. It's your choice on which way
Right.
you want to go. They still have brokers holding funds here. So it
Ooh.
gets a little dicey around here, I just have to say, when they come to the
Yeah.
table with cash in hand.
We call it
Ugh.
Wild East, right, Sherry?
Yeah, it's Tennessee's been a step back in time, that's for sure.
Yeah,
That is-
considering you
oof.
came out of California, the most litigated real estate state, and then you went to there. Aren't you just very short drive away from the time zone change where you're either central or eastern?
Yes, my county line is the time zone line. So if I go out of the county that I'm living in to the east, it's an hour ahead of me. So yes, it can get very confusing.
Can you imagine?
That's-
You're like
that's wild.
15, 20 miles, right? And you're across the
Yeah.
time zone line.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Cutting
Yeah.
up a state.
Yeah. You want to have breakfast tomorrow morning? Yes. 8 a.m. your time or 8 a.m. my time?
Right?
That's good. All right. That's good to hear. So this to me is not something that we need to spend a ton of time on, under I have a property under contract or common loan types, understand the financial side, unless it's something you struggle with, in which case I will definitely be willing to answer any questions or comments on it. So I'm going to hold for a second. Does anybody have questions, comments, thoughts, ahas, or anything that they need from that? Okay. Then let's for a minute talk about this whole idea about today I will multiply my value 100-fold. And that is something right now that I think is very important as the market is shifting, that we have to become more productive and a bigger, better version of ourselves in this kind of market than we've ever had to. But I love what he talks about. He says a mulberry leaf touched with genius becomes silk. A field of clay touched with the genius of man becomes a castle. A cypress tree touched with the genius of man becomes a shrine. A cut of sheep's hair with the genius of man becomes an article of clothing for a king. It's possible for leaves and clay and wood and hair to have their value multiplied, but why can't man do that? Today I will multiply my value by 100-fold. I'm likened to the grain of wheat which faces one of three futures. The wheat can be placed in a sack and dumped in a stall until it's fed to swine, or it can be ground to flour and made into bread, or it can be placed in the earth and allowed to grow into its golden head, divides and produces 1,000 grains from the one. And from there, you have to say to grow and multiply, it is necessary to plant the wheat grain in the darkness of the earth. And those are my failures, my despair, my ignorance, and my inabilities are the darkness in which I've been planted in order to ripen. And if you look at that, it's a really good analogy. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with this kind of writing, meaning that what's it called? Metaphoric writing, or using things as analogies. But for me, it's very indicative. Like when you watch a movie and is there a you know, a motivation behind the movie, or is there a point being made? I think a lot of the animated pictures now, even if they're funny or kid related, there's a point behind them, you know. Even the movies Frozen, why do parents let their kids watch these things 2, 3, 4, 500 times? Because there's a lesson. There is a lesson. If you don't know the lesson, shame on you. Ask your kids. They'll tell you what the lesson is. But there are abilities for us to learn from basic lessons in life. And I think that that's something that I still work on every single day, is being a bigger, better version of myself. But also, when we do something like this, aren't we multiplying our value 1,000-fold? Every time you reach out and talk to someone and help them, you're multiplying your value. I've told people over and over again that in the last 10 or 12 years, I've spent over $150,000 of my money on being coached and counseled and worked on to become the biggest and best version of myself. And I say the best way for me to have spent that money is to dilute the hell out of it by sharing everything I learned with other people for free, so that I can say I've diluted that money that I spent. In 2018 alone, I spent 50 grand of my money on me, meaning having a coach who was $3,500 an hour, having like these people that really challenged me and helped me to find the reasons why I do this versus this. And if this over here is what's going to get me the results I want, then why do I want to do this instead? And there's reasons behind it. I don't necessarily know what they are, but as I've learned what their roots might be, I've learned this, that everything I do is not based on blame of someone else. It is more decisions I made about myself based on things that happened in my life. And that's what happens. You can have two people raised by abusive parents. One goes out and becomes a billionaire and saves 100,000 kids' lives by putting them through programs so that they're not victims to abusive parents. And the other one's in jail for murder. Well, they're both raised the same way. You can't blame the parents because one of them turned out amazing. So you should probably give credit, right? What's the difference? It's the decision the individuals made about themselves based on what happened in their circumstance and in their lives. So it is very true that genetically we can change a lot about ourselves by improving the environment our genes are in. And it's the same with mental health and all of that. Being a real estate agent is not easy. It's not easy at all. What we do is not difficult. What we do is simple, but the consequence of what we do is so complicated, right? Getting told by a client they hate your guts, and you're like, what? Like shocked. And today I heard, Sherry knows both these people, but I heard Paul Sessom, a coach, tell about a referral that he sent to Jim Knowlton, who's in New Hampshire. And Jim just started laughing and said, I won't sleep tonight, Paul, for reminding me that, because they did everything they could for this client. And in his history, 30 years as a real estate agent, he said she's in the top 5 of the only people they ever wanted to kill that they represented. So you just can't account for what the things you don't control, which is how people think, how they behave, what they say, what they don't say, things like that. So either way, love having this book. I've been leaning on it a little more. And I found one in a box that I put away of memories. It was a brand new one. I'm like, why is this brand new copy in here? And I opened up the front of it right here, and there was a note from me to my sons. And it said, I don't know what day or whether I'll be dead when you find this, but it's going to stay in this box of memories that you'll probably go through after I die. And telling them, even though I've given them each this book before, the chances are it got tossed aside. But I think if at some point they find my box of memories and they go through it and they see this book with that little note in it, that they will take the contents of it more seriously, right? So Katy Perry, or the band Perry, had a song that says, "When I Die Young." And I love the line in there. I would encourage you guys to listen to the lyrics of that, not so much because I like listening to the song, but actually listening to the lyrics. She said, funny how after you're dead, people start listening, right? And those lines in there like mean a lot to me, that people said a lot to me when I was younger that I maybe didn't hear. not so much about what I had to say, even though I felt like what I had to say was important at a younger point in my life. I was a big student of Tony Robbins years ago, before he was as popular as he is now. And I had all the early books, you know, when he was wearing suspenders and he was skinny, all of those things, that it really was about me wanting to have this life of personal development and being a bigger, better version of myself. So if we combine all our lessons that we learn in real estate and then use them to grow as people, scroll number 2 that Sherry talked about a minute ago is one of my favorite scrolls in here. You know, the first scroll is, to me, great because it talks about, today I begin a new life. Today I shed my old skin, which hath too long suffered the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity. Love that very first scroll. But the second one is great. I will greet this day with love in my heart, for this is the greatest secret of success in all ventures. Muscle can split a shield and even destroy life, but only the unseen power of love can open the hearts of men. And until I master this heart, I will remain no more than a peddler in the marketplace. This is so huge. No worries, Letitia, we'll see you next time. And so it's important that you understand why Verl Workman, who's a big advocate of Og Mandino and his work. In fact, Verl is friends with the people who are in charge of the Og Mandino Foundation and the Og Mandino family, because this book continues to make a difference in so many people's lives. Plus, he has a bunch of others. I have I probably have 10 or 15 of his paperbacks that are like this. So, all right, that's my message for today. Tell me a little bit about how I might help any of you individually. And if you run out of things that you need help with, we'll end the call. So, Sherry?
Well, I just wanted to back up the book. I'm going to tell you that scroll number 2,
Right.
whenever I have to walk into a room or anything along that lines, one of the things that it says is just to say, I love you in your mind, not out loud. And that has been a
Yeah.
tremendous help in many situations, because it puts me in a different mindset, but it also conveys that visual message out there that it softens everything and it just makes everything go smoother. If there's one thing I wish I'd had when I started in real estate, it would have been to know that, because I started real estate I was a hostage negotiator. And so I went in with both barrels blazing. I will win. I'm out for the win. It's, kill or be killed. And now this is loved and be loved. And it has changed my real estate business, that book. So it's a great book to focus on. That's all I had to say.
Hold on. You said you were a hostage negotiator?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just queuing on that myself. What the hell?
Okay. So you
Yeah.
obviously know the
telling
guy,
you,
or about the guy who, what is it? What book did he write? That
Chris
is-
Voss?
Chris Voss.
Yes, yes,
Chris
yes,
Voss.
yes.
Yeah,
Never
Tom's,
split the difference, negotiate like your life depends on it. That is
Yeah.
my absolutely all-time favorite book. Like that book has changed my life. Marina, Sherry, are you joking? Like,
But she's going the opposite way with
oh no,
this
she's a
Og
badass.
Mandino's kind of,
She's a humble badass. Let's just say that.
okay.
Yeah. She can kick your ass too, by the way, but she can't tell anybody that.
So I was negotiating before the book was written. I'm just going to say. So there's that.
so were you using his
Holy
techniques?
smokes.
Do you use his techniques?
No,
Yes.
he was using hers.
He was,
Tom.
yeah, he was using hers. What are we talking about here?
Well, look, he's an FBI guy. So was Sherry, were you with the FBI or no?
No, but we were trained through the FBI. Yes.
That's just
So-
badass. Like my whole perspective of you just shot through the roof. That is just like, that is no small thing.
I had the hots for her before she was cool. I'm just saying.
I'm not, my
Gary, I'm at the
perspective
front of
didn't
the line,
change.
Gary, right behind Gary.
My
What's that?
perspective didn't,
I'm at the front of the line right behind Gary. Don't forget.
my
That's
perspective
crazy.
didn't change. My opinion of you didn't get any higher. I'm just afraid of you now. That's all.
That's good.
Well, Bruce,
But I love
Bruce,
you.
I'm pretty sure those things go together. If you're afraid of her, like
They-
she's
they're-
gone up, she's elevated in your mind.
They can be mutually exclusive. Trust me, man.
know.
But dang.
That's badass.
Yikes.
I comment on that because that book has changed the way I do real estate. When I get on I see coaching calls, and I don't want to mention any names, but a lot of them do this scripts challenge where, okay, we're going to talk about commission. And then there's two people on stage, and then there's the seller, and then there's the agent, and they come up with this snappy comeback, this one liner, and the role play, the client goes, oh, okay, you win. Like,
Right,
really?
yeah, you
That's
don't get
not how
anything out
life
of it.
goes. Like the stuff that you use in tactical empathy that Chris Voss talks about in his book, it's a whole conversation. It's a whole getting the agreement, getting them to say that's right, and winning them, acknowledging how they feel before you can get it. This is a 10 or 15-minute conversation before you can get there usually. But anyway, I have immense respect for Sherry, obviously,
Yeah.
not just because of that, but just because in what we do, it's tactile empathy on steroids, because we're dealing with the largest purchase that most people will ever make. And when you have that much at stake, when it involves money, man, that brings out the best and worst in people. And I think it is, I love what Rick just said. I've spent over 150 grand this year, he has, on his own personal development. We owe it to ourselves and our clients to master this stuff, because if we don't, we are doing our clients a disservice by not being able to bring out what's important to them and help them realize it, and us, and be able to meet that needs. And sometimes it's look, we got to walk away because I'm not right for you, or you don't need to sell, or this is not the right time for you to buy. And sometimes that doesn't benefit us, but it's what needs to be done. And I know Rick has done that many times, and so have the rest of you. So that's it.
That's awesome, Tom. Tom, that was a really good diatribe right there. I like that. And Sherry, thank you for sharing that stuff with people. But and the fact that you've pre-read the book that I'm about to read and said that it's not just about door knocking, it's about building a business around real estate and door knocking. Has he said anything in the first 2 chapters about having a sort of Monday through Friday life in real estate and not a weekend?
Mhm.
Because that was a big Mike Ferry thing in the early days. And I remember running that office, the Century 21 office I ran in the 90s. And I threw a spouse night for the spouses of all the other agents in the office. And the agents weren't allowed to come, just me. I was the manager, the assistant manager, the training manager, and the maid admin. And we told everybody, if you say something here, it stays here, so that they felt like they could say something about their significant other and how frustrating it is to be married to a realtor and things, that we would keep it in the room. And I remember my wife on the way home that night said, I met this guy who's married to Keiko, and her name was Keiko Akubo. And she was totally a Mike Ferryite and didn't work weekends, right? Didn't do open houses, she worked Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, right? And she says, you can do, she only does business Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. Why don't you do that? And this is what I said back then. Oh, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. No, if you're going to do a lot of business, you got to be able to work nights and weekends and stuff like that. And yet today I tell people, you choose the hours, I'll show you how to succeed with those hours, which means my perspective and beliefs have changed. Wish I knew more about it then. Do you get what I'm saying? So these books open up new thought processes that you didn't have. That's why I'm a big advocate of book clubs. I didn't used to be. I used to think book clubs were the stupidest thing in the world. I can read my own goddamn book. I don't need anybody's help. But when you hear what other people read out of a chapter that you read, and when they say it, you go, what were you reading? And you go back and read the chapter with the perspective of what you heard them say. It doesn't even seem like the same chapter anymore, because we're all freaking different, right? So yeah, it's definitely a big deal. And I love hearing what you guys have said. Thanks for putting that book in there, Bruce. Sabrina, I'm sorry, we haven't got to talk to you yet. And we didn't get to talk to Suhail. He was on and then off again. So let's go with you, Sabrina. How's your week? How you doing?
My week has been kind of crazy. I'm trying to help a client rent out a property in Marietta, and we can't get as much rent as his mortgage is now due to the interest rate. He's not very happy, and it takes a lot of time. Plus, it's an hour and 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I'm frustrated with that. But other than that, life is good, and he may be buying another property in Marietta. So I'm getting very familiar with that city.
Yeah, right.
It's a nice city, and I'm sorry I was late today. I had a call and I couldn't get off of it.
Oh, that's okay. You don't
I
have
missed
to
you, all of you.
Yeah, that's all right. We're happy to have you. So Hale, can you hear us now, sir? Do you have any comments, thoughts about the week or anything?
Yes, I apologize. I'm driving, but I've been listening, and I didn't know we had Chris Boston's sister here. That's amazing. All right.
Older sister, yeah.
You know,
She teaches him.
do you know about Chris Voss also? Because I only knew about him because Tom told me. Like, that's where I.
Uh, I read his book 1 or 2 years ago. Yes, an amazing book. All right, where I need help is this time and schedule. So my wife's brother passed away recently, and my wife has been staying with her mom, and I kind of became a single dad for 5 days a week, and I take the kids to my wife over the weekend. So I got this mindset challenge that, I got the kids, so how can I go on appointments and stuff? And of course, I can do stuff when they're in school, but when they're not in school. Anyways, I was interested in learning more about managing schedules and time.
Wow. Okay, good. So, and did you, you're breaking up a little bit for me. I don't know if everybody else heard him perfectly, but did you say in there what you got out of chapter 8, or do you have any, comments about that? Because I didn't hear if you said that.
No, I'm behind on my lessons, but I was interested in any pointers you might have in terms of managing schedules.
Okay. Definitely one of my favorite subjects, something that really had to change for me about 10 years ago. Certainly again, 7 years ago, I had another dramatic life-altering change in my ability to manage my schedule. About 10 years ago, I had a coach who was a both business sort of life coach. And she said, you are not successful in business until someone runs your schedule other than you. And I got off that call in total disbelief. I'm like, what? I don't want somebody else. Believe me, once somebody else runs your schedule. So this was the biggest leap of faith I ever took. There are 2 major Calendly links out there attached to my calendar, meaning anybody, hundreds of different people can go in at any point, Suhail, and book 30 minutes with me. And so I have to look at my week every week on Sunday night and decide where am I going to put my lead generation time and block that off so that somebody doesn't put a 30-minute Calendly call in there. Where am I going to do lead follow-up? Remember, I talked about that last week, that lead generation and lead follow-up should be separate sets of times. They can abut each other, but they cannot be mixed up. In other words, if I was hovering over your room that you were doing lead gen calls, and I heard you do what's technically considered a lead follow-up call, I'd hit you on the back of the head and make you hang up and say, no, I'll call you back later, because we gravitate towards lead follow-up calls because we already know the people, it's comfortable, they're willing to chat with us. But lead gen calls are, no, I don't know them maybe, or I haven't talked real estate to them. And so those are the kinds of things. But having to get really serious about fitting everything in and still leaving time for people to book appointments with me has really, elevated my game of being right on top of my schedule. Today, I got out of bed at 4:10, left my house at 4:35 to go play basketball, got there at 5:05, stretched, warmed up, took a few shots, played basketball from 5:25 to 6:25, got in the car, drove back, had an Uber waiting for me at my house so I could go to pick up my car. Like, I had all this planned. On the way back, the DMV was just opening. I didn't have an appointment, but I was able to get 5th in line. I did more by 9 a.m. than most people do in a freaking week. But that has elevated my game so much because I'm right on top. I even had a 9:15 a.m. after walking time for walking the dog. I had a 9:15 a.m. phone call, not Zoom, just phone call listing appointment. And I possibly won 2 listings at the time while saving another listing for an agent I didn't even know by protecting her and telling the client she's right, something she didn't know when she listed your home, because all of the comps showing your home should be listed lower came after you listed your home. So like all kinds of stuff like that's all happened all today. Had breakfast with my wife, everything before I did a 10 a.m. ramp call. That didn't happen to me before because it would have all been scrambled. Took my supplements, took my collagen, took my G3 power juice, like everything got done. And look, I'm wearing a nice shirt, my hair's combed too. So, and my deodorant's on. The reason I say that, Suhail, is you have to be willing to get totally uncomfortable with the amount of control that you have to get your schedule that way. And when it's being scheduled by other people, Selena, my coach, now has complete access to my calendar. Like she can go in and erase things and put other stuff in without me knowing. My assistant has access to that, everybody. So I have become totally dependent on the calendar. And if I calendar something like the 9:15 call this morning, I thought, I know I'll get busy with the dog or whatever and forget the call. I also set an alarm in my phone because I can just go, hey Siri, I don't want to say that too loud because she might react. Set an alarm for 9:14 a.m. tomorrow morning. Of course, the alarm went off, even though I was already cognizant of the call. There's times when I would have forgotten. So you also have to know to schedule yourself properly and to be in control of your day is what are my demons that come up when I book something into my calendar. One is forgetting, one is pretending you forgot and just avoiding it, right? So these are big deals. And I'm going to stop right there. I said a lot in a short amount of time. Did you learn anything in there?
Yeah. So I think I need to be more strict with the schedule, and this is something that you echoed again for me. And I allow what I consider priorities to mess up my schedule. You know, sometimes I feel it's a priority, it's urgent, I need to get to it, but at the same time, it will mess up my schedule, and there's something that's gonna be missed. So
yeah, well, you know,
balancing.
and what becomes a priority, meaning what gets prioritized, can change in the minute based on you. And so maybe but guess what? If I prioritized my family or my time alone with Casey enough in my schedule, then when I'm at other parts, I'm not worried about what I didn't prioritize time. Like I don't feel guilty. That's a big deal. Like I'll use Marina for an example. She's got 4 children. I'm sure that there are times when she's with the children going, I wish I could go out and work more on my real estate business because she's new at it. But the more she gets, any mom gets more focused on, okay, when I'm with my kids, I'm going to be 1,000% present. And when I'm in real estate, I'm going to be 1,000% present in real estate. And that's why I tell people, we have a couple of people that we know that have jobs and they say, I can't be successful because I have a full-time job. I go, that's bullshit, because I was working 100 to 110 hours a week with at least 2 different jobs in the 80s when I got into real estate. And I still finally got to the point where I could quit everything and just do real estate. It took me 8 years, but I did it. Okay. So 80 to 88, always had other jobs. At the beginning of 89, every job was gone. I had enough money in the bank to cover about 6 months of expenses. And I said, I got 6 months to make this work. All right. So it's been a very, you know, up and down, varied career where sometimes have so much money and sometimes have no money. But at least I knew it was always my efforts that would make the amount of money I wanted. I didn't depend on anyone else or corporate boss. So please, wherever you are, be there. And if you're not there, then change your calendar around so you can be there. And if you've got something that's handling guilt or regret or denial or avoidance, then handle it. Put it in your schedule. Say no more real estate for the next 2 days. I've got to handle all these things. Talked to a guy yesterday that I've been trying to get him to join EXP for 4 years. You know what he said to me? You got to really be okay talking to someone when you say, Rick, I got to tell you, I'm going to move my license, but I don't want to do anything else. I don't want to recruit people. I don't want to sell houses. I have to handle my mental health issues. And he went quiet and I could tell he was starting to cry. And it actually makes me choke up right now because this is a guy I know for a long time. I didn't know he had mental health issues, but when you're admitting it to someone, then take care of that freaking demon. Take care of it. Because you're not going to be able to handle the uncomfortable nature of real estate work unless you handle that. And it all goes back to having a controlled schedule where you are controlling your day, not someone else. Okay?
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Marina, I wasn't picking on you, just using you as an example, by the way. So, yeah. All right. Anybody else want to comment or help Suhail as far as the scheduling thing? Because this is about the wisdom of the crowd, not about the wisdom of Rick.
It might be advantageous to go back to, I don't know what chapter it was, but when we were talking about the big rocks and the pebbles and the sand,
Yeah.
and reevaluate it now with the new vision of the kids involved. It may change how you look at that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's in week 2, but that's a really still a great exercise. So I think, that exercise about the big rocks is which, Casey and I have it over here. We have these title company calendars out here. Sherry, do you remember them? Tom, you've probably seen them. They're this big for 1 month. And we have ours out already all the way through December. And we're putting in stuff. But mostly what we put on that calendar is our time off, not our work time. Because once you've got that down and you go back and look at that big calendar, you go, oh no, we're going to be here that day, or we're going to be there that day, planning a 50th wedding anniversary party for her parents and all of these different things. When we look at that schedule and someone says, oh, Rick, I need you to speak here on that day, or Rick, no, I look at that calendar. I'm like, no, I got those days I'm with family those days. I'm not doing any calls. I'm not doing anything. So we really have to, that is a big deal, that prioritization. So good point, Sherry. Bruce, anything you want to throw in the mix, considering you have to mix cancer appointments and things and trying to be there? I mean, you're a good example of that. So
Yeah, I mean, goes without saying, my wife's health and everything that is involved with getting her to the point where we can say she is a survivor takes precedence. Doctor's appointments, things like that. Not that I have to go on every single one of them, but I'm definitely cognizant of things that are going on. She makes me aware of every doctor's appointment that she's going on, and I base it around that. But when things do happen, for instance, she just had a double mass 2 weeks ago. The mood, everything changes, she was in severe pain. So my thought is making sure that she's okay. And that's my calendar for right now, since we're talking about that. But everything gets filled in after. My concern for her is abated, for lack of, or my fear for her is abated, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
So it's I didn't think it would take over our world as much as it did, but it did more than I thought it would. So it's a sucker. I said an S, sucker, not an F.
Yeah.
So, but it's not fun. But we're getting through it, and we there's a light at the end of the tunnel in what stage she's in right now. So we're looking good.
Yeah. And Bruce tells Suhail, for your sake, Bruce telling a story of something called if you must erase, you must replace.
Mm-hmm.
And so if his wife has a cancer appointment and he has to go, then he has to erase out of his schedule, let's say lead gen time. This is going to be lead gen, or I was going to show property here. But when you erase it, you're obligated to replace it in your calendar somewhere else in the same day, if possible. Right.
Yeah.
So Suhail, that might be, if something does suddenly become a priority, you're not going to be able to change that. It's become a priority. Now just move what's in your calendar to another section of your day and say, I have to reprioritize this. Right. And we started recently using Trello boards. If you guys are familiar with Trello, it's an app. And I had tried it back 4 years ago, and failed to understand it at a high level. But my coach, Selena, taught me it. And it's working really good to keep track of listing leads. And I'm completely keeping track of my agent attraction through Trello boards. That's also helped me with my scheduling, because Trello will email you and text you if you had put a commitment down, right? So there's a lot of great things that you can use, and there's tools that are free essentially all over the internet that you can use to help you to be better at keeping your commitments. So does that make sense, everybody? Good with that? Wow. Here I thought we were getting off the phone at 10:35, and now it's almost 11. So all right, last minute comments, thoughts, questions, ahas, and thank you all for being on. And Sabrina, thank you for your nice comments. let me know if anybody else has anything else before we end the call.
Yeah, I struggle with the time blocking too. It's something that has been a constant frustration for me because even when I schedule it, sometimes I blow right through my time box. The key is once you schedule, okay, from 9 to 11, I'm doing a do lead gen, then you got to do it. And then when you say, okay, I'm going to work out here or I'm going to have lunch, you just got to do it. And that's part of the self mastery piece that I'm still working on. So I'll just fall on my dagger and say I'm very much a work in progress. So any apps or cheat sheets that you guys have or hacks would be greatly appreciated.
I will always go back to his first scroll is develop good habits and become slave to them.
Yeah.
That is something that I've been talking with my wife about. It's been consuming my thought processes as of late. Something that I've started and stopped and started and stopped and started and stopped many a time that I am trying to just get it into bedrock, that is a tenet of being in control of you more than the world being in control of you. You're controlling your world, so to speak, by becoming a slave to your habits. And it's kind of counterintuitive when you think about it that way. You're being in control of a habit to have control of everything else. So that's something that I've really, really started thinking about deeply and just trying to figure out how to make sure that I get that down.
Yeah.
Bruce, have you heard of the book called Atomic Habits?
I have it. I've unfortunately I've listened to it because I get it on audiobook. I used to spend, before pandemic happened, I spent a lot of time in the car, and that's when I would listen to it. So now I got to get the paperback or hard whatever and read
It's
it
a
now
great
since I'm
book.
at home now. Yeah, I have it. I just happen to have
Well,
to go ahead.
Listen to it with pen in hand, because you don't necessarily have to have the words in front of you. I mean, that is an amazing book as well.
Yeah.
I'm into reading. I'm into Audible like you. I'm listening
Yeah.
to this stuff all the time. But Atomic Habits, James Clear,
Yeah.
amazing as well. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
he's
some
amazing.
growth.
Absolutely.
That's some good growth.
Big time. I agree.
Yeah, it's amazing book, Sherry. I've listened to the Atomic Habits, and I take notes on my cell phone. So I do in the notes section, I try to do all that so that I can keep it with me, because I love writing, physically writing, but then I lose the paper and then it's gone. But if I put it in my notes, then at least I have it with, I just have to scroll through and find my notes, and I'm constantly adding to it. Every book I read, I'm doing that. I'm taking notes. I have to stop the recording and take more notes. And it's a good problem to have. But again, if there's a more efficient way to do it, I'm all about it. You wanted to throw out a good life hack, but yeah, those two books are great. Atomic Habits is fantastic. We've talked about it in our team meeting as well. So thanks for bringing that up. Good stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all, guys. And I will take that book more seriously because it is sitting on my nightstand and I have not opened it yet. So
Which one? Atomic Habits? Oh yeah.
You know, the only book I'll add to that, and I'll just make this quick, and Rick, you alluded to it earlier, is The One Thing by Gary Keller, because he talks about time blocking and he talks about doing the most important things first. And the basic question that hits us all like a brick in the face is, if you don't make time for what's most important, by default, you're doing everything else. And that the end of your day, week, month, life, decade, year, and you look back and you think, what the hell was I doing that was so important that I didn't get around to what was most important? And man, that is a sobering question. So yeah, it's finding the first domino, like Gary Keller talks about. Just find that first domino and doing that every day, and boom, boom. That's an atomic habit that has major consequences.
Another one, and I hope this is the last thing. 12-week year. If you haven't heard of it, look it up.
Timothy
Week year.
Ferris, or
I think so. I know the publishing crew. I have a friend that has the last name, and I can't remember his last name now. But
Getting
yeah,
Things Done is also it's an older book by David Allen, but that's going to tell you how to process. It's not going to tell you, well, it's going to tell you how to time block, but it's also going to tell you how to process. They have steps that you can actually print out and go through. And
Really?
so you just making decisions. So sometimes we're just overwhelmed and we just need to make a decision. It's like a flow chart, and all the way down, yes, no, and David Allen is great with that one. So that's just the inner workings of the management aspect, the decision
Sherry, do
making.
you have the Audible on that one too?
On getting things done.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so those reference materials that those printouts, those are the PDFs that are available online, like once you get it, right? Because I've heard of that book and I've wanted to get it, but I haven't yet. So you just sparked my memory.
Excellent. So where I got that one was I actually just Googled it and then went to Images and printed it out.
She stole it.
Well, I have the book. I have the physical book.
Sure.
I actually, the physical calendar that they have in there that they talk about it's a perpetual calendar. I use that for my contact management for like my birthday cards and everything. So it's a whole physical system. And, you know, Rick, if you ever want me to do a talk on that, I can, but it's all about contact management, the paper aspect of it, the birthday cards, the home anniversary cards. You're not writing them every morning. You write them a year in advance.
Hmm.
Yeah, I see a lot of people talk about writing everything for the whole year between Christmas and New Year's. And then just having them to send out. So, yeah.
Wow.
I actually do it monthly. So I look, because it's held in a month calendar file,
Yeah.
and I pull them all up and I write out envelopes for all the next year of all the people that are in there. And then I have a book that I keep that has birthdays and everything in it.
Mhm.
And I just keep that and write it. And so I go through that at the first of the month, like I just did August yesterday. And I have everything, all the new birthdays and everything are all ready to go. All the old birthdays have been ready for a year, and I made out the new envelopes for next year. So that way, if I'm down, it can just go.
Wow.
Good
Great
call.
having you.
I'm glad you turned that recorder on, Rick.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It still ended up-
Man, oh man, there's a lot in this call.
Yeah.
Dang.
All right. Well, I got to run, guys.
Okay.
And
Cool.
it's great having you all today. And thank you all for the input. And again, before our next call, which is week 9, we will have the Free Friday coaching call at 9 with Steve and Ross. And I hope you will all be on it. Again, if it's Gina at rickjiha.com, GEENA at rickjiha.com. If you need the link, she will send it to you. Okay. Did you see what Bruce wrote in the? Still scared of Sherry, just saying. Love it. All right, Bruce,
Awesome.
your lovely wife, my love, please, and kiss her on the head of hers for me, okay?
Will do.
Guys
I
soon.
appreciate you.
All right.
Perfect. You and your wife, yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Great call.